Welcome to Play by Players, an MLSPA podcast. This show is brought to you by the players and is all about the players, both past and present, who have plied their trade in MLS. You'll hear about each player's journey into the game, their careers and life after the game, on the field and off. It's all on the table. Now here's your host, former MLS player, Bobby Boswell.
Welcome to another episode of Play by Players. I am your host, Bobby Boswell. Today we are joined by a Catalonian international. He has over 220 games in all competition, which includes Major League Soccer for Sporting KC and Orlando FC. He has played in Liga Portugal, La Liga 2. He has appeared in the UEFA Champions League, the Europa League, the CONCACAF Champions League. He has represented Catalonia in international play. He is an MLS Cup champion. He is, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, a Taça de Portugal Cup champion, which is their version of the Open Cup. Please welcome to the podcast, Uri Rosell.
Hello, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for joining us today. How is everything winding down in KC? I know the season didn't go necessarily the way you thought, but how are you doing mentally, physically, and what are your plans for the off season?
Yeah, definitely. We wanted to be in the playoffs. We were pretty much close to getting to the final with the US Cup, which was exciting. Fortunately, we didn't make it, but there's years that are going better than others, and obviously we will have to learn from that. But outside of that, really happy. I'm healthy, which in the world of soccer, it's not always the healthy part is there. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Well, I am very excited to have you on today for a variety of reasons. One is I love that you're saying soccer when I know it's not natural for you, but that just shows you've been in the U.S. for a while now. But there are a ton of things that even in my career and even in my post-career, people have always asked me, oh, did you ever play against Barcelona? Did you ever play against Ronaldo or Messi? I can only imagine someone in your situation, the amount of questions that you've gotten. But today on the podcast, I hope to ask some of those questions that you've gotten before and let fans, we joke that people in the locker room don't always know what's going on. So the casual fan might not understand it as well either. But we're going to dive into your story now and, feel free to educate us today, as I know you're a good educator. So your story starts in Spain. I'm gonna butcher this, but is it Puig-Reig? How do you?
Yeah, it's Puig-Reig.
Puig-Reig. Okay, I don't roll my
Puig-Reig.
R's. I've been known to butcher words, but I know you've shared a locker room with Graham Zusi and Matt Beasler, so you should be used to Americans with the lack of rhythm in their tongue.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because maybe 2 days ago we were talking about, because those guys are learning Spanish. And they were like having flashcards while we are having breakfast, and we were kind of making a joke because you guys cannot roll the R's, right, like we do, and they were trying and there's no change. And so when you did it, it was kind of funny.
Yeah, no, I've people are used to me not being fluent, and I've studied Spanish. I grew up in South Florida, so I was always been around Spanish, and I feel like I'm saying it correctly, and people always give me this look. But in your case, I know we're going to talk a little bit about your education and how important it is to you. But your English has always been very good from the time you came to MLS. Has that been made the transition? I know you learned it pretty quickly, but that had to make your transition a lot easier in terms of speaking to people like me who don't know Spanish.
Right. When I arrived, I knew what I learned in the schools, but it's not like great. So I had to learn on the hard way, which was speaking to my teammates, trying to get when you're having breakfast or lunch or whatever, trying to be in their tables, even if I sometimes didn't get it. But it was more to get used to and get the environment kind of help me on getting into speed on that. So yeah, but definitely once you are able to communicate yourself with teammates, helps a lot.
Well, we got a little off topic there. Let's talk about where you were born and where you're from. Can you tell the listeners what it was like, in not only your hometown, but what it was like growing up in Spain? That's just such a it's rich in a lot of things, but especially in terms of soccer and football.
Right. Yeah. So I think one of the most important differences is that each town kind of has their own club. No matter if the town is 2,000 people, 4,000, 10,000, 60,000, they have a soccer club there. So like let's call it like academy, but they have also like senior people playing, which is when I came here it wasn't there, right? You have the big MLS franchise, and then you have other academies, but they don't have like a team on the over 20 years old. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that was one of the things that I would like to highlight. But my town has 4,000 people, a small one. I grew up very happy. I could bike everywhere. I pretty much knew everyone there. You know, when you were a kid, you had the freedom to play at school until it got dark. And also like culinary style, we are very rich on like very good healthy food from farm to table.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about some Spanish ham and some paella a little bit later.
There you go.
I was gonna bring it up, but I've never played with a Spaniard that didn't brag about their soccer and their food where they're from. So that's I spent some time with Jose Andres in DC.
Okay.
I know some really good Spanish chefs, but also everyone I think that's from the Mediterranean and Spain and those parts of the world consider themselves great chefs. So we'll talk about that in a second. Most soccer players, professional at least, they grew up playing soccer from the time they had a ball, the time they could walk. I feel like in your case, talking about the town you grew up in, I'm assuming that it's very similar, that you always had a soccer ball and that you always knew you wanted to be a professional player.
Yeah, so when I was young, I was playing in school every break, and I think I got to love the game very early. But I didn't play in any academy or club until I was maybe 7 or 8, which is kind of late these days. But I wanted to be with my friends. My friends were playing there, so I asked my dad. I said, "Dad, can I go join them and play in the Puig-Reig club?" And obviously I went there and started there. But yeah, I think everybody, even these days, at the school, they love to play soccer.
Yeah, and it's great that you talk about your connection there, because I know you've put on several clinics back home. Is that right? You give back to the community, and I'd imagine in a small community that's you're one of the guys that made it. It has to be a really fun thing for you to do.
Absolutely, and seeing the friends of kids being there, supporting you, trying to learn from you, it meant a lot to me, especially because very close they were doing other soccer camps. FC Barcelona was doing a soccer camp, and they didn't have as many people as I had. So it meant a lot because I was there. I was showing every day. I was part of the trainings, and I think they love that.
Well, that's really cool. I mentioned, that you're Catalonian. For those that don't know, I'm sure you get this a lot, but I feel like a lot of people don't know, especially like my friends back home are just now getting into following football around the world, and they're asking me about rivalries. And I was talking about the Catalonians, and they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Can you tell the listeners just a lot of people don't realize that you consider yourself autonomous, from Spain, which we're going to dive into the international game you played in. But talk to the listeners about what it means to be Catalonian to you, and kind of, as a culture, what that means in Spain.
Right. So the difference is we speak another language. We speak Catalan. We obviously learn Spanish as well. So right from the get-go, we speak two languages, and the rest of Spain, they just speak Spanish, unless you are in the Basque country, which they speak Basque and Spanish as well. So starting for that, culturally wise, we speak another languages. We have a lot of different like big parties that have been there for ages. That it's in our heritage, our culture, that the rest of Spain they don't do. Also, food is, you can see that there are different things compared to Spain. So that would be probably the most different things compared to the rest of Spain.
Yeah, and I don't mean this as a joke, but you have to kind of consider it. We always joke that the Spanish Federation would never let you be independent, the soccer federation, because they would lose almost all of their good players
Exactly.
from the country. So the argument is the sports department, not just their basketball too, that they would lose all of their players to the Catalonian region. And that's a testament to I know I said it was a joke, but that is a testament to the quality of players that is produced.
For sure. If you start looking at in different, not even soccer, as you said, different basketball, other sports, there are a lot of Catalans that have become professional if you compare it to the rest of Spain, which I don't know if it's the mentality that we have been given from the families or culturally, but definitely even not going even further. If you look at the Spanish national team, you will see probably 8-10 guys from Catalonia.
Yeah, no, it's an impressive list. I normally rattle names off for people, but these guys don't need to. Everyone knows who they are. They don't need their names rattled off. Many in MLS know that you were a graduate of Barcelona's youth program called, and I'm probably going to butcher this too, La Masia de Can Planes, or La Masia for short.
La Masia.
La Masia. Okay, let's stick with that. We'll edit the other part out. But correct me if I'm wrong. Did you started with, was it Espanol, or where did you start your first youth program?
Yeah, so I was in my hometown, Puig-Reig. Then I went to Manresa, which is a bigger town. And from then I was about to get to Real Madrid, but I went there. Everything was fine. But since I was really young, I had to leave everything and just live there. My parents, they had to stay at the town. I had to leave the friends and everything, but I knew that was a big opportunity. So I say yes. And 3 days after, literally, the Espanyol called me and say, hey, we want you. We will offer a taxi. There are other guys that don't live in Barcelona, which is where the team plays, right? And we'll pay a taxi and they pick you up from the school. You don't have to leave your house. And I was like, oof, I'm gonna do that. So at that time, I made that decision to go to Espanyol. And the following year, I went to Barca.
Yeah, and you joined Barca. What do you remember? What age? Was it 14, or were you younger than that?
I was probably 13, 14. Yeah.
And was that? I'd have to imagine. You talked about Real Madrid. I would imagine those were maybe the two teams that were on your bucket list, dream opportunities.
Right. Yeah. When at the youth, usually Espanyol and Barca are the ones who are competing because Madrid is in the other region. So you don't get to play them unless there's like a big tournament or something. But like league-wise, you would play always. The big rivalry would be Espanyol versus Barca in the youth. So being able to play for both teams, it was an honor for me, and I obviously try to do my best because I knew that every year there was a big milestone.
Yeah, and talk to us a little bit about the mentality. If you would like, I know you've been vocal in other interviews about some of the players that you looked up to that were there, some of the players that were not just in the academy, but on the first team, things like that. But just talk about what the mentality is to survive at a club like Barcelona.
Yeah. For me, I took it more as an opportunity to learn as much as possible, and I think that helped me a lot because I was willing to take the advice from the coaches, take the feedback in a good way, and I was there to learn. And as you learn and you go there thinking, okay, maybe this may be my last year here. It kind of gives you an extra thing that I think that's the thing that made me go through each year.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And you know, again, the players are world household names now. I joked around that you know, getting ready for this, that you were looking up to Xavi, and I was in college. I was looking up to a guy that lifted weights and quit soccer to be a model. So it's kind of a different experience from one guy to the next. You know, but that's maybe not fair to all Americans. But that was my experience. You know, when you came to MLS, and I'm getting a little ahead of it, we're not going to go there yet. But Peter Vermes, he had a great quote that I loved. He said he didn't realize that you were such a good interceptor of the ball and that you read the game so well because they just didn't see it on tape or they didn't see it in games they watched. And it's kind of a testament to the style of play for Barcelona, right? Like you guys have possession the entire time, so no one knows if you're even good at defense. You know, is that something that you knew you were good at, or did you kind of, you know, I would imagine every club you went to after Barca, you were used to possession at Barca to some style that was very different than where you played.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So when I came to Sporting KC first, I was around 19, 20 years old, and coming from Barca to come here, it was a big of a transition, but definitely because we wanted to have the ball and play and try to simulate what Barca did, it kind of met me in the middle. So it wasn't like a big gap. And since we had the ball pretty much all the time, it made my life way easier and the transition way better.
That's great. Well, you moved through the youth programs that you talked about there. You know, you talked about going to KC, but first you were with Barcelona B. You had a handful of appearances there. What was, if you had to explain to people what that experience was like? I know everyone loves to do the, you know, okay, La Liga 2, what would they beat MLS? I played with a lot of guys that were in La Liga 2, and they were some of the better players on the teams I played on. I think Spain is just known for their technical ability more than anything. If you don't have a good first touch, you're probably not in the first 3 or 4 divisions. But for those that aren't familiar with it, talk a little bit about what that experience is like playing in La Liga 2. You know, because you are you're in first team trainings with the La Liga teams, and you know, you're playing against them in friendlies, sometimes in those Open Cup type competitions. What was it like for you?
Definitely, it's a big step to be there and be able to play, because you find a lot of veteran players that have been in the league so much, and they know the ins and outs. And when you are that young, probably 17, 18, take that step, you are basically competing with full bodies, like power, experience. So you got to beat them with your feet and also thinking about it, right? So for me, it was a learning process. Every time I was training with the first team, I was like amazed how good those guys were. Seeing Messi train, having Pep Guardiola as a coach, we would do the rondos, the 5v2s, and those guys were flying. It was a joke, because as a young guy, we would start doing rondos every day at the beginning of training. So the young guys would have to start in the middle to run, right, and to recover the ball, and then you go out 5v2s. So every time I was going with the first team, I had to start pressing those drills that is just for fun, right? But by the end of those drills, I was dead, because I was running for 2 minutes in the middle, then you recover, then you don't have the perfect pass to give it to Iniesta, but you look at him and say, no, I'm going. It doesn't matter. If it, if there's a little bit of a challenge, you are going in, and then by the end of the warm up, you are dead. So that was
that's
cool.
awesome. That's awesome. I'm as a fan, I'm excited to hear that. Let's talk about how did MLS, come to your attention? How did did you, can you tell listeners, did you have an agent that looked at that, or did
Right.
MLS approach you? How did you end up finding out about MLS and the whole process?
Right. Yeah. There's an agent that brought me up the opportunity, plus with Peter Vermes as well. He played in Figueras in Catalonia, so he knew that he wanted to play more Barca style, and yeah, everything aligned, and they presented me the opportunity, and I was very happy that with the project, the way they sold it to me, and it was a success from the beginning.
Yeah, did you know anything about the league, or was it kind of a learning once you made the decision, I think I'm going to do this, then you started diving into it?
I knew about the league. Obviously, I had to learn a lot, but just having the opportunity to be important in a project, I felt really welcome here, and the league wasn't as big as it is now, but I saw that there was also an opportunity here, and then I came, and went great.
Yeah, so you signed with Sporting KC. I have to say Sporting KC with you because of what happens next, but you signed with Sporting KC in the summer of 2012. I remember it because it created a lot of buzz, kind of similar with what happened with Ricky Puig. Forgive me if I said it wrong again.
Puig.
I should know that. With Puig earlier this season, you weren't the first person in MLS from La Masia. If New York Red Bull fans will remember, Albert Salatis, I think is how you said it. I actually played against him in 2009. He actually went on to become a pretty good manager. I think he coached at Valencia, and then he was the assistant with the Spanish national team in Real Madrid. The difference was he was, I think, 34, 35 when he signed, and you were 20 years old. Right. So there was a lot more excitement, in my opinion, about a guy coming in that had a lot of juice left in his legs versus a guy on his way out. What were your expectations going to KC, considering the buzz that you did get, because it was a pretty big deal for MLS to sign you and have you come to our league?
Yeah, the first thing was I just want to make sure that I can give my best, and I was in the perfect place in the right time. I think the organization Sporting KC gave me everything I needed at that time. I was really happy being in a different country. I was open to learn the language, to learn culturally how Americans are, and I think that helped me a lot. The predisposition to learn. That's something that you wanna find if you have to sign a player, I guess. But the club made it so easy. The staff and the coaches gave me the opportunity to be my best, and I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah, and then as far as off the field, because a lot of times it's not the on the field stuff that makes the most sense to guys that come from a foreign place. In your case, you're European. You have very good public transportation in Europe to go to the middle of America, where we drive everywhere. It takes an hour to get somewhere easy. What was that one of the harder things? I know we talked about the food. Was very different. Right. You go from eating healthy, Mediterranean diet to barbecue sauce on everything. But what do you remember was tough in terms of the transition off the field?
Probably the beginning, the language, because as we spoke before, I didn't know. I knew some words, obviously, but I wasn't great at it, and I had to catch up with that. Also, was a challenge for me, which was great. But the first months were a little bit challenging. Let's put it this way. I have an example that I always tell, but when we were at the in my apartment, every time I was walking out, I would see a paper in my door, and I was like, "What is this?" And I was looking at it, and I was like, "No, probably publicity or something." Every time was the same until one day that I see eviction, and it's kind of the same in Spanish. So like maybe this is something serious. I went to the club and say, "What is this?" And they say, "Are you not paying rent?" And I was like, "Well, I gave them my credit card, so I thought they were like taking it out every month, but they weren't doing that. So I had to go there and pay every 2 weeks or every month." So for me, that was the big shock at the beginning, that there are things that are done differently, and until you don't get these things, it's kind of interesting. Another thing was the credit. You got to build credit, right? And I was like, it doesn't make sense, but when you are here a long time, it kind of makes sense. So all of these things adds up. And the other one, the big one is food. Obviously, when you come from where I come, Mediterranean cuisine, there are a lot of ingredients that you cannot find here.
Spanish
But
ham?
now, Spanish ham, exactly. That's my
Have you found
go-to.
it yet? Has anyone brought it or no?
You can find it online, but it's very expensive.
Okay. Well, I think it's interesting that eviction is the universal language.
Yeah.
You know, and good old America would get you in debt as soon as we can. So, you know, that's a joke. Well, let's talk about your play on the field. You come in. I think Julio Cesar was already there. I'm not going to say anything badly about him. He was a really lovely guy. I loved playing against him, but he was also kind of on his way out. I think he was a little slower as he aged. And I remember, because that was a big rivalry, the Houston KC rivalry, when I was I was a part of it, and you were stepping into it. And that first year, you really had a coming out party kind of at the end of the year,
Right.
you know, leading into the playoffs. You know, what do you remember about that first year in terms of, you know, I felt like a guy that comes from Barcelona, he should be starting immediately. He should be the main guy, but Peter kind of eased you into that more than throwing you into the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the thing. I think he was really smart about how he wanted me to get minutes, and at the beginning, I was a little bit frustrated with that, because I was like, I want to play. I think I'm ready. But he was like shaping me with trainings, with the scrimmages. I think he made the right decision at that time. And as you said, Julio was there. Julio Cesar was there. We knew that he probably the following year wouldn't be playing. So they prepared me that half a year that I was there, the 2012, to get to know more the league. So the 2013 I was ready.
Yeah.
And actually I had a little bit of a taste of the 2012 when we play against you guys in Houston. That we played the first leg in Houston. We got beaten. What was maybe 2-0, and then Julio Cesar played there, and then he got injured, and I played that game at home that we won 2-1. But I think we should have won that even more.
Y'all were tough, man. And going up there, you know, we played that game a little too much, and it cost us the next year, which is a perfect lead into, you know, 2013 was, you know, I don't know how you feel about your career so far, but for me, 2013 was probably one of your best, if not your best year, for a lot of reasons. You make a huge impact in KC and in MLS. You guys go on to win, you know, the MLS Cup. And before we talk about the international game, talk to me what you remember about that championship year.
Yeah, that was amazing. You know, being able to help the team the way I did, it was very gratifying. I was really pleased that everything worked out well. Leaving home to go 2,000, 3,000 miles away, it paid off at that time. And winning a trophy, playing the whole season, all the minutes, it was a great feeling.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. I think the fans, y'all have great fans in Kansas City, so that it became a fortress. So, and then you had some really talented players. A lot of those guys are still scoring goals and still having a big impact on the league. So, it was a special group of players, tough to beat,
Right.
tough to play against. I know I didn't enjoy it most of the time. So, I would say everyone noticed that you had a great season, including Gerard Lopez. What is your nickname for the Catalonian national team? So I've already butchered too many words. How do you say the nickname? La Selección?
Selecció.
Selección. Thank you for
La
helping me with that.
La selecció catalana.
There you go. So he recognizes that you guys are talented, or that you're having a great year, right. And you're one of two non-La Liga players that gets called in for a friendly against Cape Verde in Barcelona. And the other guys on this team are the best players in the world. Right. What did that mean for you, not only as an individual, but I'd have to imagine that your family back home, that this was probably the highlight of their lives for you?
For sure, because my friends and family could come and actually see me play, which was great, and being able to play with Xavi, Busquets, Jordi Alba, Piqué, it was unbelievable. Even it was just a scrimmage game. It was a great present for me, just being able to play with them.
Yeah, and you say it was just a scrimmage. Why? FIFA doesn't recognize you guys, but yet you're able to have these games. I know at one point, I think Johan Cruyff was the coach for the team. What is it? I guess for the people that just aren't familiar, what is the purpose of the games? And because the players are incredible, why does FIFA not recognize it in terms of, but they still allow it essentially?
Right. I feel like if we wanted to compete in a World Cup, obviously they don't allow it because we are not a country. If we separate from Spain, then probably would be able to do that, or we should. But I think it means a lot from Catalan people that they can actually see just Catalan soccer players all together and fighting against countries and win them. As we spoke before, we have a lot of talent in our country, so I think it's rewarding to see once a year those players playing for Catalonia.
Yeah, and in your case, that's a huge achievement for you. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
Let's go back to MLS. You played for a little bit longer with KC, and then there's a transfer to I call it Sporting Lisbon, but most of Europe now knows it as Sporting. What did you request this move, or how did this come about? Because clearly it's a huge opportunity. For those that don't know Sporting Lisbon, I recommend you look it up. It's got a huge history. Luis Figo, there's some names there that are household
Cristiano
names.
Ronaldo.
Yeah, Ronaldo's another name that people are familiar with. But just talk about that opportunity, how it came about, and how excited you were.
Yeah, I was really excited because that was after the year that we won the league. So everybody was happy with we winning the league, and I was up for the next challenge and having the opportunity to play Champions League. Because we were playing Champions League at that time, it was incredible for me. That was my biggest motivation. I always wanted to play Champions League, and having a team that they believe in me that I could be there and play in the probably the highest competition in the soccer world. That was huge, and yeah, and when I had the opportunity to go there, obviously it wasn't an easy decision because I was really happy here in Kansas City, but also I knew that I was young and I had to take this chance because you never know what will happen. So it was one of those decisions that I have to say I gotta do it. I gotta do it, and yeah, and it happened. So it was great.
Yeah, and you know, for for me, the important thing you talked about was the Champions League and then Europa League. You got experience in both of those, and for those that we joke around about, we like to joke about CONCACAF Champions League here, but that is the mecca in terms of Champions League is everybody's holy grail, right? That's where even you don't always get to go to the World Cup, but some guys from other places, that's the only opportunity they have to play against the best players in the world in the Champions League. So can you talk a little bit about really the mentality of a player that's going to Champions League versus, one that isn't, in terms of, even CONCACAF Champions League is great, but it's not the same as Champions League in Europe.
I feel like just the moment that it kind of marked me more was when I was hearing the anthem right on the field. The Champions League anthem.
Yeah.
So that moment I realized, like, okay, now this is a big step that you are right now, and I was focused that I could make myself a career in these stages, and being able to play. I think in our group we had Schalke 04, we had Chelsea and Maribor, I think, and we almost passed the second leg on that. So being able to compete with those teams that you have seen in the TV or you play in FIFA all the time, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's I think every kid's dream is to play in games that mean something like that. So talk about your time at Sporting. It's you had some success with the first team, but you get kind of shipped around a little bit, which is pretty normal I don't think people realize how big of a club it is there with Benfica and Porto as well.
Right.
The big three. And I've known a lot of guys that have tried to go to different clubs around the world, and the amount of talent that one is there, and that two that they're always bringing in to try to replace that talent. What was it like for you you kind of got moved around? I think at one point you were in the division below, and then you got loaned out to, I think, two other clubs in the first division. But how did you handle all that? And how did it allow you to keep growing?
Yeah. Just to correct you, I was all the time first division. But
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think what kind of happened was, like, when I was brought, there was one coach, and that coach got fired after a year. So then the new coach came and say, I want this one, the rest out. And then I had a long contract there, and I was like, okay, trying to figure out what was the best place to go to get some minutes and keep learning and keep being in shape. And I felt like even sometimes you don't feel great, right? Because you want to be in the big three or the big two in Lisbon. It kind of helped me also to grow personally, but also in the soccer world, because you see different roles that you are not used to when you playing in a big club. So you gotta get physically better. There are different formations that you are not used to. You don't have as much possession as when you are on the big three teams. So all of these things kind of help me to grow as a soccer player and to have more tools, more weapons to play my game.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. You had some success there. You won and correct me if I'm saying this wrong,
Taça.
the Taça de Portugal,
Uh-huh.
and that's the equivalent. It's kind of like the Open Cup. Is that similar to the way
Yeah,
we do it here?
exactly.
And that had to be, I'm curious because you beat Porto in the final. Is that
Braga.
Braga? Okay, okay.
Braga.
I'd have to imagine, you win MLS Cup, and a year or two later, you're winning this another trophy. It had to be really a special moment for you, and it's a pretty big big tournament there for you to win. It's got a huge history.
Right.
And I know y'all were trying to keep pace with some of the other clubs and how many they won. So it's big bragging rights there. What was
For
that
sure.
like for you?
For sure. There's a big competition between Benfica and Porto and Sporting Lisbon that you cannot even imagine. So every time we would play against them was a big thing, and being able to win the Taça, which usually Benfica and Porto win. So I would say the Sporting is the underdog because those two teams spend more money than Sporting. Being able to win it, it was a big for the fans, and kind of show to their faces that we were also good, even the budget wasn't as big as the other guys.
Yeah, and this is a little off subject. We can talk about it or not if you don't feel comfortable. The year before, when I looked at this, I think the team that I think y'all lost in the final to Deportivo de Aves, if I'm saying that correctly, which if you look at that team now, and it's kind of a thing in Europe, and Spain's had some issues with this in the media lately, where a team was in financial ruin, and they end up getting relegated, and they try to punish the team. And then they kind of do this thing where they change the name of the entity and change the name of the club, and they wipe their debt out, and now they're back to playing as a new team, same city, same stadium, same club, essentially. And then we saw this offseason with Barca, the money they spent on all these new players, and there's guys there that are technically under contract, but they're not really able to do anything. For an American fan of sports, we're pretty used to, you sign a contract, you play for that team, you get paid on time. That team is not in financial ruin, so they're able to continue with operations. Right. As a European, especially a guy from a region that has been in the news lately, how do you look at situations like that, and how do you explain that to an American like me that just doesn't understand how it can continually happen, and FIFA just essentially is like, we'll make it go away, or they find some rule where they're able to get by and continue business as usual?
Yeah, man. I think history have taught us that the way they operate clubs is not ideal. There's no salary caps. There's nothing. So that means that if you want a player and I'm a club and you are another club, we can beat against each other, right? And until one says, no, I'm gonna give double, and then the player goes there. But at the end of the day, the ones who are hurting are the clubs. And it seems like the way it's structured in MLS, having the salary cap, that this is what you're gonna spend plus DPs, but you know that you're not gonna get too crazy or emotional with some decisions. That this is basically what happens in those big clubs, right? And when there's something like COVID, which kind of cut the revenue with, I don't know, more than 50% probably, FC Barcelona then were suffering a lot because they didn't have the revenue that they expected, right? So I feel like they are on the edge all the time.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you talking about that. I'm not sure, I've never asked anyone something like that, and I'm sure you might not get that question on camera or on recording, but I know people probably ask you what's going on in the locker rooms, and maybe making a joke about it. But it is interesting to American soccer fans and American sports fans, because it just doesn't, you see Real Madrid's this huge club, Barcelona's this huge club. other places around the world have these big clubs where sometimes you don't understand it or tax issues. But anyway, let's not get off subject. We're back to you. And you decide to make a decision to come back to MLS. How did that come about? Where you decide I'm going to go back to MLS?
Right. So when I was in different clubs, the situation was a little bit ugly. They wouldn't let me go, and there was that point. I was like, man, I was really happy in MLS. I probably, we can tell that is when I had the most success. I really like the culture here. I knew that in the future could be a potential place to be and to stay. I knew that the league was going into the right direction. So for me, those were the major points that when I thought about it, is it possible to go back? Came into my mind. And you know, when you are in a place that you want, that they respect you, they know how you play and they value you, you kind of want to go back, and this is what happened to me.
Did you have any idea it would be Orlando? I think Dallas had the first shot at you, or that maybe I know they got something out of that deal. Did you have an idea it would be Orlando, or how did that come about?
It came about because the day we played the final 2013 was against Real Salt Lake that we won, and the coach was Jason Kreis at that time. So he probably knew me well, that he wanted to bet on me. I think for some sort of rights, for in case he weren't in a great position to get me, they probably had other options at that time. And yeah, having Jason Kreis betting on me again to bring me back, which wasn't easy at all. I'm super grateful.
Yeah, and you come to a team that wasn't even, I think you left before Orlando came into the league, and then you come back, and now they're an MLS team. What was, it was not a very long window that you were gone, but I feel like you came back to a different version of MLS than when you left. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say. Definitely. I feel like the league is growing so fast, so that when I arrived, you could see that there were more young talents there. They were bringing more South Americans that they're also seeing the league as a trampoline to go in Europe, and you feel it, So yeah, I think one of the reasons I was really pleased was because I actually could be back with a better version of myself, with a lot of experience in different competitions, and I think at that time with a new team as Orlando, they beneficiate themselves as well from that.
Yeah, and when you left, you were really a part of a really special team, in beating everyone with KC, and you kind of come back, you're not even the same player, you're a better version of yourself, but you come to a team that is really struggling to find its identity when you get there, and to your credit, you improved them. You got them into the playoffs, and you kind of set them up for this path now where they're starting to win trophies and being more competitive.
Right.
What did you take away from your 4 years in Orlando?
Yeah, so since the beginning, I knew that they were doing the right things. Probably I knew that I would take some time. That's why I resigned for 2 more years, because I knew that we would getting into something. The people that were building it, they were very passionate. You could see that they were trying to do the right things, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to stay, obviously. And then we made the playoffs for the first time. We almost won the bubble tournament that we did. MLS
Cup. Yep.
Yeah. so that was an indication that the we were moving in the right direction. And then this year they won the US Cup. So
Yeah, that would have been an interesting game if you had
yeah,
if you had
I
won
know,
the penalty shootout against Sacramento.
I know.
Talk to me. How did you end up getting back to KC? Was that kind of always in your mind?
Right,
I always say guys, they seem to remember their best years as their favorite
right,
years, and you want to get back to those years.
for sure.
How did that come about that you end up getting back to KC?
Yeah, so after 4 years, I knew that I wanted to try something that uh, it was a little bit different, and I knew that there was the opportunity to come to Kansas City. And since the moment I kind of decided I wanna something new, we speak with Peter, and we quickly agree that that was the time to come back.
Yeah, and without, I know y'all have had some bad breaks there, and it's the expectation is high and didn't meet that this season, but it's got to be great having you there. My favorite position on the field is the number 6, your position, and I think people don't realize they're starting to realize with analytics how effective you are with your interceptions, but really you've set some MLS records, and I don't need you to comment on it. It's just me bragging for you. You've set some records in terms of completed passes in games. Your passing percentage is, it's astronomical in terms of a guy that has that many touches on the ball. So I know that I know Peter's happy. I know the fans were very happy to have you back, and I hope for good things going forward in the future for you in Kansas City. Let's talk a little bit about off the field. You're a very interesting guy from what I can tell. You've been on like cooking shows, and I think you've done some modeling. I know you play some musical instruments.
Yeah.
But a big one that I thought was really cool was you seem to have a focus on education. You had it when you were in Barcelona, and you brought it over here to the U.S. I think you studied at, I'm going to try this one, Chemical, the Institute of Sarria.
Sarria.
Okay, I'm trying. And then I thought you went to the University of Missouri, one of the programs there.
Yeah.
But you've been very vocal about the importance of having an education, and really, I think you focus on business because you talk about your time. You play for only so long, and then you have to go into something else. Where did that come from in terms of your idea to pursue that dream?
Yeah, I think my parents both are professors, so probably they are the ones who taught me education is first, and then it was soccer for so many years until I became professional. So just having those two pillars that they were saying all the time, education first, kind of got into me, and it seems like is something that I've been having forever, because I always want to learn. I don't consider myself just a soccer player. There are a lot of soccer players that they just want to do this all the time, and probably they don't have more interests. But for me, it's the opposite. I do have a lot of interest with different things, and it's soccer player is a cool job because allows you to have extra time. Probably by 1 or 2 p.m. we are at home, so we have a lot of our own time, and I try to make the best out of it.
Well, I'm going to call you El Profesor because you're holding a pen. I feel like you're taking notes on the mistakes that I'm making, and I'm going to hear about it after.
No.
That's really cool. And I know Peter has been vocal saying he wishes he had more guys doing what you're doing versus playing video games. So that's really neat. You were recently elected to the executive board for the MLS Players Association. Congrats, and thank you for your service and stepping up to do that. When I was a player in the league and a member of the PA, we really had trouble with the international players. Some of it was a language barrier. It sounds like you speak 4 languages fluently.
4 languages, yeah.
So that's a big solve there. but we really had a problem getting guys engaged into the issues. And I think some of it was because a lot of times guys thought they were going to come in and only be there for a few years, and it wasn't their decisions to be made. But what caused you to decide to, because you have to run to be elected, what caused you to put your name in the hat to potentially get a seat at the table?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. I'm really happy. I'm very honored that I've been elected, because one of the core things is to help, right? And I've been serving the MLSPA as a representative, first in Orlando and now in Sporting Kansas City, and I've enjoyed a lot just talking to the teammates and see that as a group we can bring so much value to foreign players, but also like American players, with the decisions that are being made in executive levels. That was the thing. I wanna be up there so I can actually help even more people to be in a better place, and just being the first foreign player to be in the e-board, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's incredible. And I think with your pedigree, where you come from, that also helps, because I know, a lot of guys come from South America, they come from Europe, they come from other countries where it helps to have someone that, maybe isn't like in my case, it was all guys that had been in the league 10 years that were center backs. There were no forward. It was all the same position, same guy, looked alike, talked alike. So it's great. It's great to have more diversity. It's great to have someone that has the international experience and that can communicate. So that's really cool. And again, thank you for that. I really want to thank you for your time today. Uri's on, you're on social media, you're on Instagram, you're on Twitter. I don't know about TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, so I can't see that. But he's got some great posts on Instagram. I recommend following him if you've enjoyed this podcast today. You're one of the better holding midfielders in MLS, and I talked about the stats, so back me up on that. Not just your style of play, but you're very effective in what you do. I appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast today to share your story with us, and I wish you nothing but success and luck in your future years.
Thank you so much, Bobby. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Uri Rosell, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Play by Players. Visit playbyplayerspod.com for more episodes, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
This has been a production of the MLSPA. Learn more at mlsplayers.org.